My sister married the crown prince while I married the man she had always been obsessed with back then, the capital's notorious playboy, young General Qin. 10 years later, the crown prince became emperor, but he only favored his white moonlight and cast my sister aside. There were even rumors that he intended to depose the empress. Meanwhile, after the young General Qin got married, he completely changed his stubborn ways. Not only did he become the great general of the north, but he also invented glass and revitalized border trade, and I became known as the goddess among the common people. When we met again, General Qin was leading a massive army into the capital. He was forcing a coup to seize the throne for himself. The day the army took the imperial city, I saw my sister in the depths of the palace, gaunt and haggard. She said, "He's about to become emperor. And you are still the only one by his side. Back then, he clearly insisted on marrying no one but me. Why did all the good fortune end up falling on you?" She set fire to the palace, perishing with me in the flames. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the time of our engagement. "Mother, I want to marry young General Qin. I don't want to enter the palace." When I heard my sister, Shin Songyue, acting spoiled towards mother, I knew she had also been reborn. At this moment, an imperial decree had just been issued specifying that a daughter of the Shin family must enter the palace to be the crown princess. The Shin family were all pure-hearted scholars. Since our grandfather's generation, we have been imperial tutors. Not only was our family lineage prestigious, but the Shin family was also blessed with beautiful faces. Unfortunately, in this generation, father only had 2 daughters, me and Shin Songyue. The Qingtian Observatory once calculated that a daughter of the Shin family bore the signs of a phoenix and a treasure, ensuring the Shin family would not decline for 100 years. Mother always felt that this phoenix must be Shin Songyue. Songyue's birth was incredibly smooth, but with me, she suffered a great deal of pain. She almost lost her life. Shin Songyue was eloquent, knowing exactly how to please our parents. She had the reputation of a talented woman since childhood. She was even more so the pearl of the capital. She had many admirers in the capital. Young General Qin was the most high-profile and ridiculous one. He spent his time in brothels and pleasure houses, yet repeatedly claimed he would marry no one but Songyue. Young General Qin is a famous playboy in the capital. Last month, people were still fishing him out from the lake by the brothel. How can such a man be worthy of my daughter? Young General Qin is just young. He'll be fine once he gets married, and entering the palace means fighting over a man with a crowd of women. How could I live freely there? Shin Songyue shook mother's hand and quietly leaned into her ear. "Qin Lang, he is destined for great things. Mother, believe me." Mother looked at her and fiddled with the Buddhist beads in her hand. Her face showed no expression. Mother was weighing her options. She wanted the best for her beloved Songyue, but she didn't want me to surpass her either. "Shin, do you want to enter the palace?" I was startled by the sudden call. I lowered my head and spoke timidly. I wouldn't dare. Entering the palace was meant for sister. Mother was very satisfied with me. Shin Songyue was also very satisfied. Back when the Qingtian Observatory predicted a phoenix, it didn't specify which daughter. It seems I should congratulate my sister on becoming a phoenix. But what she didn't know was that young General Qin's soul had long since been replaced. He was no longer that useless playboy. The lover who was obsessed with Songyue had drowned in that river long ago. The current lover had a new soul, cold and ruthless. He would do anything for power and money. He married me, but only kept me in the house like a decorative vase to pave the way for his grand ambitions. He even offered me to powerful officials, just to gain political advantage. But Shin Songyue never even considered why he had changed so much. She was in such a hurry to marry him. Well, she can keep that good fortune for herself. Mother didn't agree to Shin Songyue immediately. It was obvious why. One choice was marrying the crown prince. The other was marrying a notorious playboy. This playboy didn't even have a title yet. His status might just be for show. No one knew what life would be like after marrying him. But Shin Songyue was determined. She first claimed an immortal had given her guidance in a dream. She said grandmother would fall ill, and insisted on having an imperial physician ready at home. Sure enough, grandmother developed a high fever that night. She said there would be a disaster in the southwest and told father to prepare relief efforts in advance. At first, father was skeptical. Even the observatory hadn't predicted it. 3 days later, the southwest was indeed hit by an earthquake. Because they were well prepared, the emperor was even more pleased with the Shin family. After these incidents, my parents fully believed she had guidance from an immortal. They joyfully prepared to marry her to her beloved. At the same time, they brought in palace matrons to teach me etiquette, preparing me to marry into the palace. Sister Qingqing, you'd better learn well. Life in the deep palace isn't easy. With your frail body, be careful not to be eaten alive. My eyes turned red, looking weak and helpless. I'm so scared. Shin Songyue was in high spirits. She even rewarded me with a golden hairpin. Seeing as you're taking my place in the palace, enjoy these few comfortable days while you can. Once she left, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Pity? What is she pitying me for? Is she pitying me for becoming empress? Or pitying the fact that my good days will only last a few years? If Qin Lang's brilliant inventions no longer belong to him, will he still be so successful? Shin Songyue and I were married on the same day. Although father and mother packed 30 full chests of dowry for her, it was still far below the specifications of a royal wedding. Shin Songyue's expression looked a bit off, but seeing Qin Lang coming in person to receive the bride while I was only escorted by stern matrons to my sedan, she became happy again. Sister, go and enjoy this overwhelming wealth and status. I nodded. Appearing weak and submissive as always. She was satisfied, and so was I. The road to the palace wasn't easy. After hours of exhaustion, I finally sat on the bridal bed. My heart felt an indescribable excitement. There were over a dozen servants inside and outside the room. Even the bed curtains were embroidered with gold thread. The royal family truly is incredibly wealthy. When the crown prince lifted my veil, I was fantasizing about my luxurious life this time around. I looked directly into the man's face. His cheeks were slightly flushed. This was Jingshi. I had a deep impression of him from my previous life. Qin Lang was always gathering information on him. Portraits of him were hanging all over our house. He was considered a diligent emperor. Except for neglecting the Empress, there wasn't much to criticize about him. The man's gentle, yet slightly raspy voice sounded in my ear. He leaned in and asked, "Are you Qinxing? You must know. I originally asked to marry Songyue. She didn't want to marry me, so I came instead." Jingshi didn't expect me to be so direct. He was stunned, then laughed in annoyance. "You certainly are blunt. Aren't you afraid this prince's manor is a dragon's den or a tiger's lair?" I shook my head and spoke calmly. What the crown prince needs is someone who can manage the manor, oversee the household, and fulfill the duties of a crown princess. Does it really matter who it is? In terms of bookkeeping, etiquette, and rules, I am no worse than Songyue. You are quite a clever person. Seeing him soften, I breathed a sigh of relief. It seems my knowledge from my previous life was correct. He grew dissatisfied with Songyue precisely because of her artificial and affected behavior. A ruler doesn't have time to dwell on romantic love every day. The wedding night is short. I knew it then. I had successfully caught Jingshi's eye. The next day, according to royal protocol, I had to pay my respects to the emperor and empress. The crown prince's manor was busy from morning to night. The empress was originally upset because the Shin family hadn't sent my sister and wanted to make things difficult for me, but every obstacle she threw at me regarding etiquette I handled with ease and grace. Even with a cup full of hot tea, my hands were perfectly steady. I didn't expect the crown princess to have such impeccable manners. Actually, I had studied these rituals extensively. Father had hired the same teachers for both me and Songyue. While Songyue went out to play, I was practicing in the courtyard. Add to that the muscle memory from my previous life, and even the empress couldn't find a single fault in my etiquette. On the wedding night, I wasn't just bragging to him. As for how to be a good crown princess, I had it all under control. After returning from the palace, Lady Ji came to serve me tea. Ji Liangbi, she was the white moonlight the crown prince doted on in my last life. She grew up with the prince. A few years later, she became his concubine. In Shin Songyue's words, she was a seductress, skilled in the art of manipulation. Songyue looked down on this concubine, yet constantly engaged in petty fights with her, nearly ruining herself in the process. I didn't care at all. As long as she didn't flaunt herself in front of me, it wasn't an issue. The prince gave me all the money and power. He just happened to have a favorite pet. What's the harm in that? In the last life, even though Shin Songyue acted that way, things never reached a breaking point. The prince and I were merely partners. As long as he didn't neglect his duties at court, he could love whoever he wanted. I didn't even have to bear children if I didn't want to. What could be more comfortable than this? The more I thought about it, the more satisfied I felt. I bestowed clothes and jewelry upon Ji Liangbi without making things difficult for her. Instead, I told her to go back and rest well. Then, I picked up the ledgers of the crown prince's manor. I began to examine them carefully. The cash flow was high, but the daily expenses were also massive. There wasn't much in the way of savings. I summoned all the stewards and head servants, auditing the accounts and clearing out the redundant staff one by one. Gradually, the affairs of the manor became organized. Even the documents the prince needed to handle, I organized into files and placed them in his study, waiting for him to deal with them daily. Occasionally, I could even discuss official matters with him. Though I hadn't mastered the 4 books and 5 classics, I had been exposed to Qin Lang's supposedly advanced ideas. Often, I could earn Jingshi's praise. Slowly, a subtle partnership began to form between me and Jingshi. When the day came to return to my parents' home, I thought I would have to go back alone. I was just ordering the gifts and carriage to be prepared. To my surprise, when I stepped out of the manor, Jingshi was standing at the entrance. He reached out to take my hand. In the last life, Shin Songyue had returned home by herself. He was giving me face. He gave me the respect I deserved. Back at the Shin residence, Shin Songyue was already snuggling up to mother. Her small face was flushed. "Mother, Qin Lang treats me exceptionally well. I am the only one in his backyard. On the very first day, he promised me he would never take a concubine." Good, good. It seems he has some sense of propriety. If he ever treats you badly, you must tell me. I will certainly seek justice for you. I stood to the side, feeling like an outsider, but I was already used to it. Since childhood, this maternal love had only belonged to Shin Songyue. When I discovered those awful things Qin Lang did in the past, I had turned to mother for help. But what did she say then? "Qinxing, you're a grown-up now. You should be more sensible." They chatted on and on for a while, until they finally noticed me standing nearby. The prince and young General Qin were both waiting in the front hall. "Why did he come? He actually came for you?" "Songyue, what's wrong?" "Nothing." Shin Songyue composed herself. The way she looked at me was like I was a thief. It was hilarious. She made what she thought was the right choice. And yet, she was losing her composure over Jingshi's differential treatment. The meal in the front hall was far from peaceful. Shin Songyue kept stealing glances at me while eating. Even Qin Lang's display of tenderness and affection couldn't snap her out of it. Meanwhile, Jingshi and I were eating with proper decorum. However, there was a plate of large shrimp on the table. I have been allergic to shrimp since I was a child. Even if I don't eat it, the smell makes me feel a bit unwell. I only wrinkled my nose slightly. But the prince noticed. He ordered the servants to take the shrimp away. With a sudden clatter, Shin Songyue dropped her bowl on the floor. It shattered into pieces. Her hand was also cut. Qin Lang immediately pulled her to his side. Holding her injured hand, he asked urgently, "Songyue, are you okay? How could you be so careless?" The servants were also in a chaotic scramble, busy cleaning up the shards and leftovers on the floor. Tears began to well up in Shin Songyue's eyes. It was my own carelessness. Qin Lang shielded her by his side, holding her injured hand, and giving urgent orders. He wanted to take Shin Songyue away immediately. Our parents watched Qin Lang's performance and nodded in satisfaction. He really doted on her as if she were made of glass. Shin Songyue even gave me a provocative look, as if to say, "So what if the prince accompanied me back home? I still wouldn't receive such deep love and care." I only found it childish. Qin Lang was an expert at playing the loving husband in public, only to later offer his wife to others, in exchange for greater rewards. And my sister, Shin Songyue, had spent her time reading books but hadn't grown a brain. These petty schemes for attention might work in a private household, but in the imperial palace, they only drain one's dignity. I finally finished that stifling meal. Jingshi also made an excuse about palace business, using it as a reason to take me away. Once inside the carriage, I picked up the ledgers again to continue reading. Jingshi took the book out of my hands. "You are the crown princess now. If there are people you don't like, you don't need to associate with them. You two sisters are quite interesting. Your sister acts like a lowly concubine while you act more like the head of the house, Jinxing. When will you ever act your age?" I was stunned. Shin Songyue's tactics really were like those of a concubine. Only concubines need to fight for favor and rely on their master's love. Life in the crown prince's manor was exceptionally busy. Besides managing the household, I had to develop some influence. Jingshi was also busy. He was an unusually diligent man who cared for the people. Come to think of it, if it hadn't been for Qin Lang's inventions in the last life, which generated a massive amount of wealth, it would have been impossible for Qin Lang to overthrow him, or to develop into a regional warlord and invade the capital. But what I didn't expect was that Qin Lang would rise to prominence even faster in this life. Perhaps because Shin Songyue, the pearl of the capital, was better suited for the goddess persona than a nobody like me. During the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, besides the imperial family and the crown prince's manor, the families of various officials were also present. After the emperor finished his congratulatory speech, he specifically mentioned Qin Lang. Before, young General Qin was always at the Red Dust Brothel or the Misty Pavilion. Now that he's married, his character has completely changed. He persistently asked me for an official assignment, and he's handling it quite well. Isn't that right? Let me see. The Shin family's girl, Songyue, is also quite capable. Look, the wine we are drinking today was presented by her. The ministers began to taste and discuss it. It really caught my eye. They couldn't help but marvel. The taste is mellow and rich, with a lingering fragrance. What fine wine. I didn't expect General Qin's wife to be so skilled at brewing. Consort Shu giggled behind her hand. She immediately ordered Shin Songyue to be rewarded with jewelry befitting the rank of an imperial consort. Consort Shu was Qin Lang's aunt. She relied on having given birth to 3 princes. She had always been at odds with the Empress. If it weren't for the crown prince's diligence, it's hard to say how things would look. The elder sister is so capable. I wonder if the crown princess has any talents to show us? Before she could finish, I stood up and performed a deep bow. Consort Shu, the crown princess's duty at home is simply to manage the manor and do everything possible to assist the crown prince. I truly have no time for such things. Good, good. As long as the crown princess sets a good example. The empress said good several times. I was only asking because the wine put me in a good mood. Both Shin daughters are fine indeed. But the one who invented this wine is truly no ordinary woman. After the emperor spoke, the empress didn't respond, as if she had already made up her mind on the matter. The ministers praised the wine once more. When the palace banquet ended, I heard some noblewomen whispering. I heard before that Shin Songyue was destined for great things. She was originally supposed to be the crown princess. Yes, yes. It seems she really is blessed with good fortune. Qin Lang used to be such a scoundrel, but now, before dawn, you can see him at the Jinwu Guard headquarters. He's like a completely different person. Do you think the crown prince also wanted to marry Shin Songyue back then? Oh dear, I shouldn't say that. I shook my head and smiled, not caring. But the crown prince, Jingshi, frowned. These women are always obsessed with such things. Don't overthink it. Just focus on being a good crown princess. Then the crown prince must also focus on his own work. I will do my best. Moonlight spilled over the low palace walls. Jingshi and I walked side by side, feeling a rare sense of peace and tranquility. Shin Songyue became even more high-profile after the banquet. She began reciting Prelude to Water Melody. When will the moon be clear and bright? With a cup of wine in my hand, I asked the blue sky, Scholars competed to praise her. She opened a tavern that sold only that one type of wine. It became so popular that the streets were emptied as everyone wanted to taste what the emperor praised wine tasted like. This was all taught to her by Qin Lang, but Shin Songyue loved being the center of attention. She thoroughly enjoyed it. Rumors even began to spread among the people that Songyue was a goddess. Qin Lang also began to frequent the imperial court. I caught glimpses of him several times from afar in the palace. For a time, the couple was the most talked about in the capital. But sister, will everything really go as you planned? At the eldest princess's banquet, which was originally meant to find a bride for her son, Jin Xian. After a group of young ladies showed off their skills, someone started clamoring for Shin Songyue to recite a poem. The eldest princess was also full of interest. I've long heard that young General Qin has married a talented woman. Why don't you recite a poem to liven things up for everyone? Shin Songyue slowly rose, holding her teacup as the words flowed. Do you not see the waters of the Yellow River coming from the sky? Jin Xian's face changed slightly. He had just returned from the Suzhou and Hangzhou area. Everyone there could sing Invitation to Wine. It was clearly written by an old, disabled scholar. How did it become Shin Songyue's work? When Shin Songyue finished the final 2 lines. When things go well, enjoy yourself to the full and never let your golden cup face the moon empty. Jin Xian was utterly shocked. He didn't know if it was because he had been away too long, but plagiarism had become so blatant here. This invitation to wine indeed won a thunderous round of applause. Madam Qin, did you really write this poem yourself? But everyone in Suzhou and Hangzhou knows it. The entire room erupted. Everyone began to whisper. I knew Madam Qin couldn't have written such things back then. Is it plagiarized? If it weren't for the eldest princess's son, we would still be kept in the dark. Qin Lang's face turned strange. Could there be another transmigrator in this world? His mind raced. This poem was something my wife received in a dream. I didn't expect that others in the world would have the same fortune. Qin Xian didn't seem to buy that explanation. But Qin Lang immediately used the excuse that Shin Songyue was unwell and had to leave the banquet. The look Shin Songyue gave Qin Lang was cold enough to freeze water. I, however, was delighted. Those masterpieces from her dreams had long been spread in the south. They had even been compiled into a book of 300 poems. Even the children on the streets knew them. And all of this was my doing. Qin Lang, can you still create a goddess now? Let's go. Qin Lang had no desire to argue with Shin Songyue. He didn't want to let people keep laughing at them. Shin Songyue gritted her teeth in anger. She didn't understand why her husband, who used to be so tender and considerate, had suddenly become like this. Reluctantly, she followed Qin Lang. Although she had almost become a laughingstock in the noblewomen's circle, making her keep a low profile for a while. As long as she stayed away from the capital, she would still be the goddess, Madam Qin. Life went on plainly. I finally managed to organize the finances of the crown prince's matter. Jingshi would sometimes come to the study to work. We just went about our own business side by side. Chen Xing, why are you so tense? Burning the midnight oil, even more diligent than me, the crown prince. I just smiled. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought about being burned alive in my past life and being kept like livestock in Qin Lang's backyard. Even after being reborn, it was hard to erase those memories. Especially knowing that one day he would lead troops to force a coup. I dared not slack off for a second. Father called me today to look at a policy discourse. As soon as I saw the handwriting, I knew it was Qin Lang's. The writing was crooked, but the arguments were remarkably novel. Young General Qin, he's very calculating. The few tasks he did for father were handled quite beautifully, but father wanted to give him a position in the Imperial Guard, yet he requested to guard the frontier on his own. If he didn't go to the frontier, how could he work on his inventions? In the capital, even testing a small cannon would immediately attract the guards. In the previous life, Qin Lang built an experimental base at the frontier, specifically for testing gunpowder. Unfortunately, it didn't have much effect in the end. It was far from what he had imagined. It was also at this time that he received the emperor's decree. After requesting to go to the frontier, within a few days, he took his family and left the capital quietly. But what I didn't expect was that they wouldn't leave so smoothly this time. The Shin family made a huge scene. What kind of bitter, cold place is that? Many who go there never return in their lifetime. Might Songyue, when have you ever suffered such hardship? If you go with him, I'll act as if I don't have a daughter like you. Songyue is already married, and I won't let her suffer. Since she is married into my family, she must follow her husband wherever he goes. There's no reason for a husband and wife to live apart. If Shin Songyue didn't follow him to the border, how could he utilize this carefully groomed beauty to her maximum value? Shin Songyue didn't dare mention the matter of Qin Lang amassing troops at the border. She could only try to appease both sides. Shin Songyue never had a good temper. Plus, Qin Lang's mother had packed their bags for the frontier with several beautiful women. Shin Songyue completely broke down and had a huge fight with Qin Lang. You clearly said there would only be me in your backyard. What's with these beauties now? Is your mother afraid no one will look after you if I don't go? Shin Songyue, can't you be more sensible? I don't need these beauties. But don't let your family interfere in our affairs. Understand, Qin Lang? You don't love me anymore. Ultimately, Shin Songyue compromised. On a dark and windy night, she quietly left with Qin Lang. and exited the capital. They didn't even leave a letter behind. It was as if they had completely cut ties with everything in the capital. After they left, my life became even more peaceful. Because of Shin Songyue's departure without a word, my parents were heartbroken. Occasionally, they would call me back to the Shin residence for a meal. Having lost one daughter, they finally remembered they had another. 5 years passed. I rarely thought about the events of my past life anymore. Jingshi was also a competent husband. Aside from having a favorite consort, one couldn't find any fault with him. I never made things difficult for this consort. Not only did she not lack for anything, she even received dividends from my business during holidays. Liang Dixia had money to take, so her life was comfortable. She never caused any trouble. She even often sent me embroidery. Her words always hinted that she wanted to keep working for me, the boss. You see, the women in the harem don't necessarily have to be enemies. Just as things were going well, one day, a maid came to my dressing room to report. Crown Princess, the envoys from the Kingdom of Jiwu have arrived. A banquet will be held in the palace tonight. The Kingdom of Jiwu was where Qin Lang had sent me in the past life. I still remembered that absurd court. Guards carried me, dressed in thin gauze, into the hall. The Emperor of Jiwu and his ministers stared at me like I was an animal, desecrating a goddess. Made those men feel excited. The nightmares were like a wound being torn open again, surfacing one after another. Crown Princess, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? It's nothing. Finish my makeup. I steadied my mind. Some things must eventually be faced. Now, I am the Crown Princess, no longer that frontier goddess living like a charity case. There's nothing to fear. Our people live in peace and prosperity. With a strong military, our country is powerful. The Kingdom of Jiwu is just a small border state. A dozen envoys from Jiwu came. Even their prince arrived. They brought gifts to seek peace at the border. Not only did they bring local gold, but also several exotic beauties. The beauties had blue eyes and fair skin, dressed in exotic clothing. Large areas of their skin were exposed. They didn't fear the gazes of the court officials at all. They even swayed their bodies enthusiastically. The emperor's eyes narrowed into slits. He had long ago lost interest in state affairs. Most of the government was handled by the crown prince, while he only cared about his own pleasure. These are our princesses from Jiwu, brought to be presented to the emperor. The emperor was pleased. Jiwu is very sincere. Ask for whatever you want from me. The Jiwu envoys submitted their petition and exchanged toasts with the officials. When the wine was flowing, an envoy excitedly stared at my face. He spoke loudly. I have seen the crown princess's sister at the border. As expected, both sisters are stunning beauties. An envoy discussing the crown princess in our court deserves to be beheaded. Oh dear, look at me not knowing the rules. Don't be offended, crown prince. I smiled coldly in my heart. I'm afraid they've already started coveting Shin Songyue. This small ripple was covered up by the singing and dancing. At the banquet, I had no appetite and didn't eat a thing. As expected, Qin Lang followed the same old tricks from the previous life. Without me, Shin Songyue was even more under his control. I don't know how long those old guys have been eyeing the goddess. When leaving the palace, inside the carriage with Jingshi, we were forced to take a blue-eyed beauty with us. I shot him a cold glare. He shrugged, as if to say he had no choice. Back at the crown prince's manor, Liang Dixia came to greet us. Why did the crown princess return so late? I prepared some sweet soup. No need. I shook my head and walked straight towards the bedroom. I wanted to say something, but swallowed the words. Liang Dixia's gazed past the crown prince and saw the blue-eyed beauty behind him. Oh my. Is the crown prince worried the crown princess isn't busy enough? Stuffing more people into the backyard? No wonder the crown princess is ignoring you. After saying that, she also walked to the backyard, leaving the crown prince and his guards alone in the front hall. That night, I was sleeping fitfully. My mind was still full of those Jiwu people. My forehead was covered in beads of cold sweat. In my daze, I felt an arm wrap around me from behind. Chen Xing, Xing Xing. I slowly opened my eyes. I didn't know when, but Jingshi had gotten into bed and pulled me into his embrace. You were very obedient today. I've never seen you jealous before. It wasn't because of that beauty, was it? What are you afraid of? I felt transparent in front of Jingshi. He was very observant. He must have noticed something. I opened my mouth, but found I couldn't speak. Whether it was about my rebirth, or how I was once treated as a toy by those people. No matter which one it was. I didn't think Jingshi would believe me, or share the burden with me. Don't be afraid. I have the mandate of heaven. I will surely keep you safe and prosperous. I laughed secretly in my heart. Mandate of heaven? Then you wouldn't have faced a coup in the past life. Unfortunately, in the past life, I was burned to death by Shin Songyue, so I didn't know Jingshi's final fate. But I imagine it wasn't good. In the end, I finally had a good sleep. While he was far away at the frontier, away from the seat of power, his information became limited. I wondered if Qin Lang could handle the anger of the envoys from the kingdom of Jiwu. Within a few days, the envoys of Jiwu returned to the border. Upon departure, besides leaving some beauties, they left nothing behind. In the second year after the envoys left, Shin Songyue and Qin Lang returned to the capital. Compared to the previous life's grand procession, this time they only brought a few servants. They failed to establish a connection with the kingdom of Jiwu. The emperor of Jiwu even had a falling out with him over the tribute. His gunpowder was not successfully developed, and the border didn't become prosperous because of him. No one responded to his recruitment, so they could only return to the capital in disgrace. The last time I saw Shin Songyue was 7 years ago. The Qin family head was now someone else due to internal strife. There was no longer a young General Qin, only a small house where they lived. Gone for 7 years. Not even a single letter. The Shin family didn't help them either. I tried to avoid meeting her as much as possible. I didn't know if my sister, having such a hard time in this life, would go crazy or do something desperate. But things didn't go as I wished. When I went to burn incense and pray, I still ran into Shin Songyue. She had long ago lost the carefree, youthful look of her girlhood. She was leading a boy by the hand. Behind her was only one maidservant carrying things for the offering. Chen Xing, why didn't you tell me back then? Are you very proud of yourself now? I stared at her blankly. I must not let her know that I am also reborn. Otherwise, who knows what crazy things she would do. While he was far away at the frontier, away from the seat of power, his information became limited. I wondered if Qin Lang could handle the anger of the envoys from the kingdom of Jiwu. Within a few days, the envoys of Jiwu returned to the border. Upon departure, besides leaving some beauties, they left nothing behind. In the second year after the envoys left, Shin Songyue and Qin Lang returned to the capital compared to the previous life's grand procession. This time they only brought a few servants. They failed to establish a connection with the kingdom of Jiwu. The emperor of Jiwu even had a falling out with him over the tribute. His gunpowder was not successfully developed, and the border didn't become prosperous because of him. No one responded to his recruitment, so they could only return to the capital in disgrace. The last time I saw Shin Songyue was 7 years ago. The Qin family head was now someone else due to internal strife. There was no longer a young General Qin residence. Only a small house where they lived. Gone for 7 years. Not even a single letter. The Shin family didn't help them either. I tried to avoid meeting her as much as possible. I didn't know if my sister, having such a hard time in this life, would go crazy or do something desperate. But things didn't go as I wished. When I went to burn incense, I still ran into Shin Songyue. She had long ago lost the carefree look of her youth. She was leading a boy by the hand. Behind her was only one maidservant carrying things for the incense offering. Chen Xing, why didn't you tell me back then? Are you very proud of yourself now? I stared at her blankly. I must not let her know that I am also reborn. Otherwise, who knows what crazy things she would do. Sister, it was you who refused to marry the crown prince, so I did. Shin Songyue's gaze was dark and unreadable, as if trying to find a crack in my composure, but I looked at her openly. Life at the frontier seemed to have worn down her sharp edges. She no longer had her former sharpness. Her shoulders slumped, and tears immediately welled up in her eyes. Father and mother won't talk to me anymore. Sister, you are the crown princess now. Can you ask the crown prince to help Qin Lang? Just let him become the general of the north. I've never asked you for anything. Just this one thing. I looked at Shin Songyue. Life at the frontier had changed her. At least she wasn't as hard as a rock anymore. She had learned to be submissive. One could imagine what Qin Lang had done to her. Her outer garment couldn't quite cover the red bruises on her body, and yet she still wanted Qin Lang to succeed. The child Shin Songyue was leading was jumping around, not caring at all what his mother was doing. He just kept tugging at Shin Songyue's hand. That's not your child, is it? I looked at the child beside her, born of trauma. There was a hint of cruelty deep in his eyes. Shin Songyue's body trembled slightly. You knew? Then why didn't you come to save me? Why? Her emotions collapsed, and she sat on the ground and cried loudly. No one came to save me. The goddess is just a toy for people to play with. They call me a goddess, but it's just to make those fat men from the kingdom of Jiwu happier. Qin Lang is a pervert. He doesn't mind sending his wife to other men's beds at all. And this bastard child. I can't even strangle him to death. He even threatened me. If I can't successfully beg you today, he'll send me back to those people. She muttered to herself. The more she spoke, the angrier she got. Shin Songyue didn't stay submissive, allowing him to run wild as before. Instead, she personally fed him the poisoned wine from her own mouth. This is poisoned wine. Qin Lang, you're about to die. Why are you still dreaming of being emperor? You bastard. You deserve to live such a pathetic life. When you're dead, I'll stuff your corpse into a latrine. What kind of man sells his wife for glory? What great achievements could you possibly have? I blame myself for being blind. To choose a piece of trash like you. I even gave up being the crown princess for you. Give me the antidote. I really can be emperor. I am a transmigrator. I don't want to die like this. I was clearly the child of destiny. How could another transmigrator be one step ahead of me? Unfortunately, Qin Lang had no more chances. Shin Songyue stabbed him several more times, letting him take his final breath. If I hadn't arrived with my people, Shin Songyue, though she only tasted a bit of the wine, would probably have died too. You, if you had this courage earlier, you wouldn't have wasted all these years. When she recovered, I invited her for a drink. After this drink, our slate is wiped clean. Shin Songyue was a bit tipsy. Why are you so lucky? In the past life, you followed Qin Lang to the throne. In this life, you also have Jingshi. We are sisters, you know? In the past life, Jingshi said. Shen Songyue didn't stay submissive, allowing him to run wild as before. Instead, she personally fed him the poisoned wine from her own mouth. This is poisoned wine. Qin Lang, you're about to die. Why are you still dreaming of being emperor? You bastard. You deserve to live such a pathetic life. When you're dead, I'll stuff your corpse into a latrine. What kind of man sells his wife for glory? What great achievements could you possibly have? I blame myself for being blind. To choose a piece of trash like you. I even gave up being the crown princess for you. Give me the antidote. I really can be emperor. I am a transmigrator. I don't want to die like this. I was clearly the child of destiny. How could another transmigrator be one step ahead of me? Unfortunately, Qin Lang had no more chances. Shen Songyue stabbed him several more times, letting him take his final breath. If I hadn't arrived, Shen Songyue, though she only tasted a bit of the wine, would probably have died too. If you had this courage earlier, you wouldn't have wasted all these years. When she recovered, I invited her for a drink. After this drink, our slate is wiped clean. Shen Songyue was a bit tipsy. Why are you so lucky? In the past life, you followed Qin Lang to the throne. In this life, you also have Jingshi. We are sisters, you know? In the past life, Jingshi said I wasn't as good as you. He said that at the frontier. The people all praised you. I thought it was Qin Lang's doing at the time. And I was his crown princess. How could he say someone else was good? I think she remembered things from the past life. Everyone has their own responsibilities. If you are the primary wife, you must take on a wife's responsibility. What the inner chamber needs is never a brainless vase who only throws tantrums. He can love many women, but only the Empress can walk with him to the end. Do you still not understand? Shen Songyue pursed her lips. I didn't expect her wooden head to figure it out. This ending is already very good. In the 10th year, the emperor passed away. Jingshi ascended to the throne. He performed his duties diligently, expanded trade, and encouraged innovation. From the papers left by Qin Lang, he extracted useful things to strengthen our country's power. The common people were flourishing. Liang Dixia also reached a high rank, but she no longer liked effectively competing for favor. Whenever she was free, she wanted to play mahjong with me. What's the use of a man? That bit of affection isn't worth fighting for. Instead of pining for his majesty, I'd rather live comfortably with you in the harem. In Jingshi's harem, besides us old members from the crown prince's manor, we couldn't even put together a full table for mahjong. My empress shouldn't work so hard. You always make me feel like you should be the emperor instead. When will you give me a little princess? I forgot to mention, our child is already 3 years old. And for Shen Songyue, the drama of her past was too much. She actually shaved her head and became a nun. Besides praying in the temple, she also helps the common people. Surprisingly, people have truly started calling her goddess with sincerity.